People who are in the country illegally are there illegally.
There have been people in this country whose status have been taken away. And the interesting thing is when everybody comes into the United States, they don't come into the United States as a citizen. No one comes in as a citizen.
In this clip, you're about to watch a heated clash over what it actually means to be American, and whether patriotism is defined by paperwork, political loyalty, or adherence to constitutional principles. The setup is deliberate. The question is framed in a way that forces a binary choice. Is the first duty of government to protect American citizens, not undocumented immigrants? It sounds simple, but it's designed to corner the mayor into either appearing anti-American or soft on immigration enforcement. Watch how the mayor responds. Instead of accepting the framing, he shifts the foundation of the argument toward the Constitution. The oath elected officials take, the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. That reframing matters because it moves the debate from emotion to legal principle. Then pay attention when Riley Gaines introduces the idea of more American. She uses assimilation, respect for ICE, and cultural alignment as markers of Americanness. That's where the conversation turns philosophical. Because now the debate isn't about immigration status anymore. It's about identity. And when Brian Tyler Cohen pushes back, he exposes something critical. Who gets to define Americanness? Is it political ideology? Is it cultural conformity? Or is it commitment to democratic values like freedom of speech, religion, and assembly? This exchange isn't just about immigration policy. It's about whether dissent is patriotic, whether disagreement is anti-American, and whether belonging is conditional.
Ras Baraka, welcome to your uncensored debut. You're the Democratic mayor of Newark. It seemed to me that the two moments, if I was a Democrat, where I would in the morning be wincing, one is the one I mentioned to Brian, where I thought it was really reprehensible of Democrats to not stand up and show some respect to Anna Zarutska. But secondly, of course, this whole moment that Trump clearly set everybody up for, specifically hoping for the result that he got, which was a question. And it's a question I'll just ask you as a question, which is, do you believe the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens?
I think the first duty of any elected official is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and uphold the Constitution of the state that they're in. That's what we swear to when we do our oath, when we are sworn in, any form of government at any level, to uphold the Constitution. And the Constitution clearly defines how our behavior is and how we should act, and who's protected. And everybody's protected based on our Constitution, based on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, based on the 4th Amendment, based on many amendments. It's very, very clear who should be protected. And that's everyone who steps foot on the soil of our country. It's clear.
But that's not with respect. With respect,
everybody.
Mr. Mayor, with respect, that's not answering my question. The question is actually very straightforward.
It's a very straightforward answer.
Okay, but the actual question is, do you believe the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens? It's not a difficult question.
It's not difficult. I just don't agree with the context. So you're not going to force me into that context. First, I don't believe that people are illegal aliens. I think that all people are human beings, and as a matter of fact,
what if you're in the country illegally?
Being undocumented in America is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense. And I'm sure the children that they're arresting are not selling fentanyl, are not head of cartels, or any of that matter. So it's silly to even have that discussion. But ultimately, you asked me what is our primary duty, and I said my primary duty as an elected official is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Should we protect residents and citizens of this country? Absolutely. No one would agree with that. But to break it down and make it divisive in such a way that there's some people that should be protected and some people that should not, is just wrong. And that's not what the Constitution states. And when I was sworn in, it says clearly that I should uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of New Jersey.
But people who are in the country illegally are there illegally.
There have been people in this country whose status have been taken away. And the interesting thing is when everybody comes into the United States, they don't come into the United States as a citizen. No one comes in as a citizen. Not in the history of this country. You don't become a citizen, then enter the United States. That's not how it works. You come here first and then apply for citizenship. and go through the process, which usually takes, unfortunately, a very, very, very long time because we do not have a streamlined process, a unified and uniform process here in this country. And which means that anybody that is going through that process could be deemed at any point violating some kind of policy, some kind of law, and be detained, whether you're 25, 35, 55, 65, or 10 in this country, which is incorrect. And for people to characterize you as a criminal or an illegal alien is just wrong. I'm sure your ancestors and the ancestors of the folks who came before you, who came from countries in Eastern Europe and Western parts of Europe and Southern Europe, who showed up here on the shores through Ellis Island and went through the process to become citizens, if they were stopped in the middle of that process, in the middle of their hearing, and arrested and dragged through the streets and thrown out of the country and deported, people would think that that was wrong then, and I think it's wrong now.
Okay, Riley Gaines, your response to that?
Yeah, well, I guess just to provide a little color to that, my husband is a legal immigrant. He came to the United States from England back in 2018. He did everything the right way. I would describe my husband, I mean, I guess fully Brit, although now has his green card in the process for citizenship. I would describe him as more American than a lot of Americans who are currently citizens. He loves this country. He understands the freedoms that we have. He sees the trajectory of England, quite frankly. He is so grateful to be here. To your point, I do think our legal immigration system certainly needs reform. I think that process needs to be sped up and made more efficient. But my husband, he respects ICE officers. And President Trump, the address that we heard last night, you have to acknowledge the things that he said are the things that he campaigned on. It's the things that we voted for. So in talking about mass deportations or closing down the border, 77 million Americans turned out to the polls in November of 2024. That's what we voted for. So to see an entire political party, I mean, in terms of elected representation and even how the mainstream media presents itself, who is totally unwilling to concede in any form or fashion to the point where they're not even able to say that their main priority is to protect Americans. I don't understand how that's not a disqualifying statement by, again, federally elected members of Congress. It seems to me as if that's an act of treason. If you can't even pledge allegiance to your own nation, that's a total act of betrayal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, do you think if you're in the country illegally, you've committed a crime?
In terms of being here illegally, I mean, as the mayor said, there are civil offenses versus criminal offenses, and I think that conflating the two is a major issue. I would respond to Riley's statement before. I don't understand what is with this conservative movement to qualify somebody's Americanness. Who are you to say that somebody is more or less American because of their adherence to certain political issues? Isn't that inherently un-American?
I guess my question for you is then just that: what is an American to you?
It's whatever you want to be. We have freedom to do, to believe in, to say, to practice whatever religion we want to. And so it's so bizarre to me for you to say, "Oh, my husband is more American because he salutes the flag and likes ICE officers." Who are you? Who is your husband to determine whether somebody is more or less American because of who they support?
If your definition to what is an American is anything you want to be, whoever says whatever they want to be can be an American, which is the exact same answer you guys give to the question, the very dreaded, controversial question of what is a woman, then are you saying that someone who currently resides in South Africa, who has never even been to America, who says they are an American, I guess by your definition, this
is such a bad faith reading of what I'm saying. Yeah. My question for you
but that was your exact
you just
answer.
Said your husband is more American than somebody else because he supports ICE agents. So explain to me how supporting ICE agents makes you more American than somebody who doesn't support ICE agents.
My husband has fully assimilated to Western culture. He loves the freedoms that we have here.
So it's assimilation. You have to assimilate, otherwise you're not American. According to Riley Gaines, if you didn't assimilate enough, you're not American.
Right. I think in terms of what it means to principally, I'm not talking about legally, of course. I understand the argument of you need your paperwork, you need to be a citizen to be an American. Actually, you know what? This was one of the last conversations that I had with Charlie Kirk. It was that infamous influencer retreat in the Hamptons. Excuse me, did you just like groan to that, Mayor? I don't
I said,
understand
God
that.
help us. I said, God help
I
us.
am entirely agree with you there. God, please help us.
Right.
One of my last conversations I had with Charlie Kirk was he posed this question to a room full of us in the Hamptons, asking, what is an American? And it left me kind of dumbfounded for a second because I didn't know, I'd never been asked this question. I didn't know how to answer this question. I never put thought into this question. But in thinking about it, yes, I believe my British husband is much more American than the members of Congress last night who couldn't even stand up to applaud no tax on tips, who couldn't stand to applaud a 100-year-old veteran who was being awarded a Medal of Freedom. Or to applaud Irina Zarutska after being brutally and horrifically and graphically
the good thing about
murdered.
being an American is that you get to choose what it is that you believe, your ideas. You could be a Democrat or
Kind
a
of like you
Republican.
get to
have the
choose
freedom
what
of
it means to
speech,
be a
the freedom
woman,
to assemble, the freedom of religion. You can choose these things. You don't have to stand on one side or the other to be an American. People who
I agree with that.
that's called democracy. And people who are against democracy, in my mind, are anti-American. And what you're saying and what has been going on is anti-democratic, and so it's anti-American in my estimation. You cannot tell people that you have to agree with me, you have to believe me, and you have to follow me.
No, you're not listening to what
American.
I'm saying.
It's absurd.
You're not. My husband loves America because we have the freedom to choose. He loves that we have the freedom to our religion. We have the freedom to press. We have the free. No, it is exactly what I said. If you would listen, I said my husband loves the freedom.
Riley, look. Let me just jump in. Riley, I would say that in relation to him assimilating to Western culture, just to remind viewers, Britain is part of Western culture, obviously. So the assimilation is not enormously difficult because he's British.
Entirely agreed. But I agree.
We are a Western culture. I don't feel like. I don't feel when I go to America that I'm entering some vastly different cavernous new culture. Natalie, let me bring you in here. This whole debate about whether people who are in the country illegally are breaking the law. I mean, it is a crime. I'm surprised to see a mayor of a major city trying to suggest that it's not a criminal offense to be in the country.
It's not a criminal offense. It's not my suggestion. It's actually the law. The law.
And might I just add, Mr. Mayor, that if your paramount value that you care about is promoting and supporting democracy in the United States, a lot of these illegal aliens that you're importing into this country, the Democratic Party did for the last, decades, 10 million plus under Joe Biden, aren't exactly coming from countries that even have democracies, let alone some of them actually aren't even countries. They're failed states, enter places like Somalia. I think we all know what happened in Minnesota.
Right.
I've never heard a more verbose and rambling answer to what should be probably the most simple thing that you could answer, that your primary duty is to defend American citizens. I've also never heard Democrats uncritically bring up, the Constitution. I thought you guys hated that document. Right. But here's the issue, and here's what I would say, Pierce. Here's how I would reframe this entire discussion. This weaponization of what it means to be an American, of immigration policy, we can all sit here and give our culture war definitions of what it means to be an illegal alien, immigration, legal terms, whatever. The point is, reason why people are fed up with immigration and illegal immigration is because it's not actually about immigration. It is a scam that big businesses, all these donors that are funding all of those candidates and congressional members that you saw sitting at that State of the Union address, they just want cheap labor. That's all they care about. I'm sure that's all your donors care about. And that's why you're seeing a degradation of American identity so corporations can suppress the wages of Americans. You're saying, wow, you know what? Your party can't even stand up for Americans who are hit by trucks, by illegal alien drivers. You think you care about the affordability, the lived experience, the economic reality of Americans? You can't even stand for killed Americans.
You are repeating a false statement.
No, there's an illegal alien truck driver that hit a 5-year-old girl. An illegal alien hit a 5-year-old girl who was president of the State of the Union. I could sit here for hours and give you the name of Americans who've been killed by illegal aliens. But you know what? The point is, we don't just need to allow illegal aliens in this country because they're not criminals. They depress the wages. They destroy the culture of this country. There's too many people. If you import tens of millions of people from other cultures, you no longer have a United States of America. Yes, you're seeing more than the GDP of Somalia be stolen from one state. You're seeing ethnic enclaves and Muslim enclaves happen in the state of Michigan. Look at Dearborn. Dearborn is not America.
The more she talks, the more racist it becomes. The fact that she's saying people come
No, I
from
care about your
countries-
citizenship.
people come from
American
countries
nationalism,
in her
economic
mind that are
nationalism is
failed
about
states.
maximizing the value
People come
of
to
being
this
an
country
American
because they're
citizen.
looking for
And you know what?
democracy.
Obama
All right, don't
agrees
talk
with
over
me.
each other.
Because if you
Because
look
they're
at the
looking for
studies that
democracy.
Obama put out about wages,
People
it's
come to
black
this country
Americans
because
who are
they're
the
looking
most
for
negatively
democracy,
impacted
because
by
they're
Please
looking
illegal
don't
for
talk
immigration
over
when it
each
comes
other
to
because I
wage
can't hear
suppression.
either of
looking
you.
for opportunity. Well, tell
If
her that-
you
tell
Okay,
cared
her
about
that-
guys,
black
please
Americans,
stop
you would
talking
want to
over each
deport
other.
illegals.
I can't hear you.
Okay, well,
You're both
Well,
talking at the same time. The viewers
fine. So I would like to
cannot
talk.
hear
So just-
either
I
of
was
you.
just
Let
accused
Let
of
me
being
ask
a
the mayor.
racist, so I'm defending
Please,
myself.
Natalie, let the mayor,
Right.
Mr. Mayor, explain
you.
why you think Natalie's being racist.
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, everybody, the fact that you mentioned people are coming from so-called failed states, people come here looking for democracy because they don't have it, looking for economic freedom because they don't have it. They're looking for, they're running from situations sometimes that are deadly, right? And so they come to the United States for safety, for security, for democracy that we've advertised to the world. So that doesn't matter. There were people who fled other countries that were not all of these countries she's talking about now, years and years ago, who came here from Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, from all over the parts of the world. For her to identify Somalia, just like the President of the United States did, to me is racist. At the end of the day, there are immigrants who come to America from all over the world. They want to choose who gets to come here and who doesn't get to come here based on their nationality, based on the country they come from, based on the religion they practice, based on the language that they speak. And she clearly identified by calling it an ethnic enclave. This is ridiculous. To be able to create a country that is devoid of anybody else in the world except the people you choose, it is white supremacist to say that. It is racist to say that, and it needs to be pointed out. And they say it's culture war. The real culture war is the cleansing that these folks are doing, calling it immigration reform, when you're really just attacking black and brown people on the streets and shooting people in the face who understand and see that and are trying to defend the democracy that this country upholds itself to be.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify one thing that's been rankling me since you said it, because I've just checked. Is entering the United States without authorization or inspection by an immigration officer a crime? Yes. First offence, a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine or up to
right.
6 months in prison.
Offense. That's what I said. That's exactly what I said, Pierce. Yeah, I said it's a civil offense.
But it's actually a crime, though. It is a crime. Your reluctance to call it a crime is interesting.
If it's a civil offense, it's a violation. It's a civil violation, right, as opposed to a crime as a criminal offense.
There are other types of immigration violations which may be civil, but actually the offence of trying to enter without authorization or inspection by an immigration officer is a federal crime. And it seems to me that this is a fundamental tenet of the law, right? If you try and come in without authorization or inspection, it is a crime.
Well, we've acknowledged that it's a civil offense. The reality is there are people who are being targeted and attacked who are going through the process. There are folks that are being pulled out of hearings. There are people who have been outside of courthouses, finishing their hearing and being arrested. There are children who are going back and forth to school who are being arrested and detained, right? There are babies who are being detained and housed over periods of time. This has nothing to do with crime. In fact, as a mayor of a city, I can tell you clearly that if we solved for the immigrants in our city, our crime numbers would be extremely lower than they are now, because most of the crime in our city are not created by immigrants. It's just not. In fact, they are more likely the victims of crime than they are the perpetrators of crime. And this idea that immigrants are taking money from cities and states is ridiculous. I mean, there are immigrants who not only pay taxes, but contribute to the economy daily by purchasing goods and services on the open market. It's very clear. And to say otherwise is just not true. It's not proven. It's not true. It's just a talking point that Republicans and conservatives use to kind of stoke fear and division. But it's just not a fact.
Okay, let me ask Brian Tyler Cohen.
What you just watched wasn't really about immigration statistics. It wasn't even primarily about crime. It was about ownership of identity. Who gets to define what it means to be American? And that's why the exchange became so intense. Let's start with the first framing trap. Is the first duty of government to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens? On the surface, that sounds like common sense. Of course, a government protects its citizens. No serious Democrat argues otherwise. But the mayor's pivot to the Constitution wasn't evasive. It was strategic and legally grounded. When an elected official takes office, they swear to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution includes the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection under the law to any person within U.S. jurisdiction, not just citizens. That's not opinion. That's settled constitutional doctrine. Now, here's the legal clarity that often gets blurred in these debates. Entering the U.S. without inspection can be prosecuted as a misdemeanor under 8 U.S.C. paragraph 1325. But overstaying a visa, which accounts for a significant portion of undocumented presence, is a civil violation, not a criminal offense. Deportation proceedings are civil, not criminal. That distinction matters because conservatives often collapse all undocumented presence into criminal invasion. The mayor was correct in one respect. Much of immigration enforcement operates in civil court, not criminal court. But Piers was also technically correct that unlawful entry itself can be prosecuted as a federal misdemeanor. Both statements contain elements of truth. The nuance gets lost when the debate becomes rhetorical. Now let's talk about Riley Gaines's more American claim. This is where the conversation stopped being legal and became ideological. When she says her husband is more American because he loves the country, respects ICE, and supports certain policies, she shifts Americanness from legal status to cultural and political alignment. That's a philosophical move. But here's the problem with it. If Americanness is conditional on agreement with certain policies, immigration enforcement, standing during speeches, applauding tax proposals, then dissent becomes un-American by default. And that's fundamentally incompatible with a democracy built on freedom of speech and political opposition. The Constitution protects protest, it protects refusal to stand, it protects disagreement, it protects unpopular views. You don't become less American because you don't clap during a State of the Union address. Now let's address the illegal immigrant killed a child argument, because this is emotionally powerful and politically effective. When Natalie and others on the right cite cases of undocumented individuals committing violent crimes, those tragedies are real. They are horrific. They deserve accountability. But policymaking cannot be built purely on anecdote. Data from multiple studies, including analyses by the Cato Institute and National Academy of Sciences, show that immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, are statistically less likely to commit violent crime than native-born citizens. That doesn't mean zero crime. It means the narrative of immigrants as a uniquely dangerous class isn't supported by broad crime data. And this is where the mayor's argument becomes grounded in reality. Immigrants are often more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators. Now let's address the failed states rhetoric. When Natalie refers to Somalia and failed states, that language carries implications. It suggests that people from certain countries are inherently destabilizing. Historically, U.S. immigration waves have followed conflict, economic collapse, or war, many of which involved U.S. foreign policy influence. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Central America. The story of immigration is deeply tied to geopolitics. So when immigrants come seeking stability, democracy, and opportunity, they're responding to systems the West helped shape, for better or worse. Now, here's the economic piece. The claim that immigrants depress wages is often repeated. Labor economics shows a more complex picture. Low-skilled immigration can create localized wage pressure in certain sectors, but it also increases overall economic output, consumer demand, entrepreneurship, and tax contributions. Undocumented immigrants contribute billions annually in state, local, and federal taxes, including payroll taxes they often cannot reclaim. It's not a zero-sum equation. Now let's address the deeper issue beneath all this: assimilation. Riley framed Americanness as assimilation into Western culture. But Britain is Western culture. Canada is Western culture. France is Western culture. Cultural compatibility is not binary. America itself is built from layered cultural waves: Irish, Italian, Jewish, German, African, Latino, Asian, Middle Eastern. If assimilation becomes code for ideological conformity, that's not integration, that's homogenization. And that's where the mayor's accusation of white supremacist thinking comes in. When you say certain nationalities, religions, or ethnic enclaves are inherently less American, you're not arguing about paperwork. You're arguing about cultural hierarchy. That's why the conversation escalated. Now here's the political strategy angle. Trump's question was designed to create a viral clip. It was performative. It was meant to force Democrats into a soundbite where they appear anti-American. The mayor refused to give the clip. Instead, he anchored himself in constitutional language. That's not weakness, that's reframing. And here's the irony. The most American thing in that entire segment wasn't cheering for ICE or applauding tax policy. It was defending the right to disagree. America is not defined by applause. It is defined by pluralism. You can be pro-ICE and American. You can be critical of ICE and American. You can be conservative and American. You can be progressive and American. What makes someone American is legal status plus commitment to democratic principles, not ideological alignment. And the moment Americanness becomes conditional on agreeing with one political faction, democracy starts shrinking. That's the real battle in that clip. Drop your thoughts below. Is patriotism about agreement? Or is it about protecting the system that allows disagreement? I'll see you in the next one.